President of the country delivers the State of the Nation address where promises are made and plans outlined. But with waning public confidence in service delivery in the last 30 years, questions are being raised about how much reality is truly reflected in the annual February speech. As part of Newzroom Afrika's build-up to SONA 2025, our team crisscrosses all 9 provinces, taking stock of what's been achieved since the dawn of democracy. Aldrin Sampear is in Limpopo and Ntokozo in Mpumalanga. And let's start then with Aldrin. And I think it's symbolic, your location, in this really important moment, the first under the GNU that we hear from President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a place where, there was a sea change for the ANC back in 2006 or 7 in Polokwane at the ANC's national conference, and a cascade of events since then, which have led to the election results that it saw last year, which really was a wake-up call for the party. So a lot to reflect on from your historic position, Aldrin.
Yeah, certainly a very good morning, Iman. Quite an important day as well as we build up to the SONA 2025 by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And rightfully, as you say, it's going to be his first one under the government of national unity. A number of promises, though, that have been made previously. And one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves is that once promises have been made, even if there's a change in the reconfiguration of the government, who is supposed to be held accountable? You'd remember that this particular province was one of the provinces that gave the administration a headache, to such a point where it was decided that this province must be placed under administration back in 2012. One of the departments that was affected was the Department of Education. But earlier this year, this province had something to celebrate as they became the 6th best performing province for the matric results of 2024. And this is testament to some of the work that has been done and some of the interventions that have not only come from national but also from a provincial level and all of the various districts. We are currently now in Seshego, which is part of the Capricorn districts, one of the best performing districts. Back in 2023, actually, this particular province also had its best performing pupil coming from this particular township here in Seshego. But there is a question around the promises that have been made before. You'd remember back in 2012 when the president then, Jacob Zuma, stood before the nation and he said that never again will we face a situation where a child goes to school at the beginning of the year and they don't have a textbooks. There were promises that were made subsequently after that as well by President Cyril Ramaphosa, this time around access to the digital devices like laptops, like iPads and tablets and so forth, to be used in schools as we go into the 4IR. But what has been delivered so far? This report has been compiled by Ntokozo Khumalo. Just take a listen to what she's been able to find with the various people that she spoke to.
A few latecomers at Criss-crossing Primary School in Giane, northwest of Limpopo, rush to the school gates before the principal closes it for the day. They smile sheepishly to avoid a lecture about wasting their potential and putting their futures at risk by coming late. The 2012 textbook crisis across the province was a real threat to the more than 2,000 pupils at Criss-crossing and thousands of others in the 3,600 government schools in the province. At Criss-crossing, one of the obstacles to ensuring all learners had learning material that year included late registrations from parents who moved to the town for various reasons, including job opportunities. Grades 1 to 3, crucial foundation grades, were the most affected at the school. But instead of focusing on the news of textbooks being dumped in rivers nearby, the staff looked for quick solutions.
We improvise when it comes to the LTSM. If we do have textbooks and we see that there's a shortage or they are not enough, we make copies for the children so that teaching and learning continues.
The school and all the other 20 government schools in Giane have not faced the same issue since, due to what Chabalala says is intensified stakeholder relations and communication. Limpopo's Department of Education's Mike Maringa said to get to the root of the problem that had been brewing since 2010, the department had to hand over control to the national government.
Through the intervention of Treasury, they brought administrators in the department to deal specifically with textbooks and other administration issues that were a challenge for us as a department. And the administrators were here for about 4 years. They've been here from 2012 up until 2015.
Over and above late registrations, investigations triggered by the interventions pointed to several other issues in the 2012 textbook non-delivery crisis, including principals failing to place orders on time, order documentations filled incorrectly or missing information, and wrong deliveries made. The South African Human Rights Commission's Azwindini Machudula was part of these investigations and interventions. The biggest shock for him over the period was the rot in the system in terms of how the textbook service providers engaged with the state, including alarming levels of neglect.
They will say that there were no roads were damaged, we cannot deliver books in these particular places. Other service providers did not have capacity at all to deliver those learning materials. So we identify all those issues and we engage the department. I think the issue disappeared completely.
All agree that fulfilling the promise made over a decade ago requires consistent collaboration by all stakeholders. One thing they will all be looking out for when President Cyril Ramaphosa delivers the State of the Nation address are plans for filling the infrastructure gaps in the province.
We need infrastructure. You'll know that we are now facing a disaster. Our schools were blown by the storms the previous year. So we're still waiting for the province to be declared a disaster area so that those schools can be attended to.
Improving oversight on those contractors tasked with delivering on those promises.
If I'm given a responsibility to deliver certain services that I know at the end is going to benefit community, I must think of doing my best, not for the government, but for our people.
And infrastructure for growing schools in growing communities.
We don't have enough classrooms. So I think that the president, when he addresses the nation, will also tie something about the infrastructure so that teaching and learning takes place in a proper place. Because we cannot expect a learner to sit under a tree receiving or learning or being taught. It won't be a proper because it's not conducive.
While former President Jacob Zuma's SONA promise of all learners having timely access to learning material have been kept, as well as the Department of Education and its stakeholders drawing some valuable lessons, government faces new challenges linked to the country's growing population, migration patterns, and changing job trends, all affecting the youth of the country. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ntokozo Khumalo in Kiani, Limpopo.